Okay, guys, so our learning target for today is I can explain setting, characters, and plot. Now, before we really get into the lesson, I kind of want to talk to you about how today is going to be set up. So, in front of you, you have a set of guided notes, and those are broken into a bunch of paragraphs, and there are blanks throughout. So, while we go through the lesson, you are going to fill in those blanks. All right. So everything on your guided notes is going to be said. All right. You are basically going to be looking at the transcript of what the lesson's going to be. So I know everything will be said. My suggestion would be to follow along on those guided notes and fill in the blanks as I say them. That's going to keep you engaged in the lesson. It's going to make you actively listen, and it's going to make you retain the information a little bit better. All right? So, we are going to go ahead and get started. And like I said, just follow along and fill in those blanks. Pause the video when you need to. All right. So, many elements make up a story. The three main elements are plot, character, and setting. The plot is the series of events in a story. The characters are the people or animals in a story. And setting is the location and time in which a story takes place. So as you read, you need to fully understand these elements. There may be more than one setting in a story, and there may often be more than one character. A story may also have more than one plot. So there may be a plot developing at the same time as a subplot. As you read, learn to compare and contrast characters with each other. Learn to notice how settings change from one part of a story to another. Okay? So I really, really, really want you to be paying attention to when these things change. Okay? Like we've talked about so far this week, characters don't stay stagnant, they change over the course of a story. You usually aren't staying in one place, you're not staying in one setting, that's going to change. The plot is all change, it's all those changes throughout a story. So stories have tons and tons and tons of change. So keep an eye out for that as you read. Okay. Sometimes the setting is stated directly in the story. I want you to look at this example. It was a hot summer in the early 1940s. The Stevens house was nestled in rolling green hills that overlooked an ocean. The paragraph shows the reader when and where the story takes place. Sometimes, however, the author does not say directly what the setting is. When this happens, you have to figure out the setting from clues in the story. Longer stories may have different settings for different parts of the plot. Now, each story includes at least one character. Every character has at least one trait. Character traits are all the qualities that make up a character's personality. For example, the following sentence shows a character trait. Sally's backpack was overflowing with wrinkled bunches of papers, candy wrappers, and broken pencils. Now, this sentence shows that messiness is one of the girl's traits. Sometimes, if a character speaks in a certain way, his or her dialect may also become one of his or her traits. The way a character looks and dresses might be a trait as well. Now, a motivation is the reason why a character does a certain thing or acts a certain way. A good way to learn about character motivation is to ask yourself, why is the character doing this? Or, why is the character behaving this way? If you can recognize both traits and motivations, you'll have a really good understanding of the characters in a story. All right? So it's really, really important to understand not only what a character does or how they develop or how they change, but to understand why they do those things. And we'll delve more deeply into that tomorrow. But I want you to make sure you are thinking about that as you read. So why is a character doing what they're doing? What is their motivation? So characters and settings are both essential parts of the plot. Setting usually affects the plot, and all of the main characters are somehow involved in the plot. Each event in a story usually affects the event following it. But it's not enough to say that a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's much more to a story than that. One important element is the exposition. Exposition introduces the reader to the characters and the setting early on in the story. Stories also have a conflict. A conflict is the struggle between the characters in a story. The plot's conflict could be between two characters who both want the same thing. It could be between two characters who have very different personalities. It might be between a character and his own feelings or wishes. And it might also be between people and some aspect of nature, such as bad weather. The conflict often causes a problem that must be solved. The climax, which is right here on our plot diagram, the climax occurs when the main characters address the conflict directly. The climax is usually the most exciting part of a story. For example, a character might decide to try to solve a problem by having an argument. The argument itself then becomes the climax because it's the most exciting point. The resolution, which we see over here in our plot diagram, the resolution is the solving of the story's problem. For instance, if there were a fight in the story, the resolution would tell the reader the outcome of the fight, right? So, looking at that really quickly, we're talking about resolution. A really good way to remember this is that the resolution has the solution. Right here at the end, it says solution. So the resolution is showing you the solution to the conflict or the problem. Okay? So our exposition over here lays the groundwork for your story. It gives you the characters, it gives you the setting, and it might start to introduce the conflict, which is that problem. And you're going to have your rising action, where things are getting more exciting, things are progressing with your problem, and then you hit this climax where something happens that changes everything. Okay? This is the most exciting part of the story. This is going to be when the characters are directly interacting with that problem. They are directly addressing the problem. Okay? And then this falling action is when everything starts to get resolved and starts to get figured out and fixed. Then the resolution is when that problem finally is solved. Remember, resolution has the solution to your problem. Okay? All right, so now you're going to go ahead and stop this video and you are going to move on to the video where we go over the practice problems, which are going to be in the next part of your packet.